After the big boss, General Bison, recruits supervillains to create his evil empire, Colonel Guile assembles a group of super fighters to rescue the prisoners and thwart his plans for world domination. Today we're going to recap the story of the movie, Street Fighter, from 1994. Around the world, news is spreading about the war in the nation of Shadowloo. Among the reporters covering the story is Chun-Li, who has gone to the battlefield to report on the conflict between the people and their evil leader, General Bison. The tyrant has captured 63 assistants from nations allied to Shadowloo and is demanding no less than $20 billion in ransom. In addition, 15 soldiers sent to rescue them have also been captured by the villain and are being held prisoner in his secret base. There, while his men take the prisoners to the cell, some of the captured soldiers try to resist and set out to confront Bison. However, the general manages to defeat them easily with his fighting skills. Suddenly, on the screen at the secret base, Chun-Li's report catches Bison's eye. The reporter is interviewing one of the leaders of the Allied army, Colonel Guile, who doesn't want to answer any questions and just makes a provocative gesture towards Bison. The boss doesn't like this at all and uses his system to hack into the report and send a message to Guile. The colonel asks his team to trace Bison's signal, but the man blocks access and warns that if the 20 billion is not delivered within 72 hours, all the prisoners will be eliminated. Bison cuts the transmission, but before he does, Guile warns him that he will rescue all the civilians, including his partner, Charlie. Upon hearing this, the villain searches for him and discovers that he is Carlos BLANKA, one of the captured soldiers. To provoke the general even more, Bison has his men take Carlos to the laboratory to carry out macabre experiments on him. Far away, in an underground fight club, two friends, Ryu and Ken, arrive to negotiate the sale of weapons with the owner, Sagat. However, he has already sent his men to get the weapons and intends to take everything without paying. Not satisfied with this, he orders Ryu and Ken to be eliminated with the very weapons they brought with them. However, when Sagat's men shoot at them, it is revealed that the weapons were toy guns. The pair seize this chance and use their martial arts skills to stop the criminals. With their swift attacks, they eliminate Sagat's men one by one, but soon more of them appear, this time with real weapons, and Ken and Ryu are captured. Back at Bison's base, he goes to see his scientist, Dr. Dalsim, to see the results of the new experiment. Even against his will, the doctor opens a chamber where Charlie is being given chemicals and exposed to disturbing images in order to become a super soldier. At the same time, at Sagat's fight club, Ryu and Ken are forced to face the best fighters in the place. The first to fight is Ryu, who must face the great champion, Vega, with his famous mask and glove with sharp claws. One of the assistants hands Ryu a machete to defend himself, but he wants to fight with clean hands and Vega decides to do the same. The counter announces the start of the fight, but before they can face each other, a gigantic tank invades the place and destroys everything. From inside, Colonel Guile appears and declares the arrest of everyone, including Ryu and Ken. Later, in the prison, the colonel receives information from his assistant, Cammy, who claims to have located Bison's secret base. In the middle of the meeting, an undercover agent of the villain sets out to attack Guile, but the colonel easily defeats him with a kick. Despite this surprise attack, this gives Guile the idea of sending an undercover agent to Bison's base. To do this, he needs someone to ally himself with Sagat, as he knows he is one of the villain's associates. While he's thinking of possible volunteers, a fight breaks out in the prison, with the prisoners setting out to attack Ryu and Ken, but the pair emerge victorious. The colonel is impressed by their abilities and takes them to a Shadowloo survivor's base, where the war wounded are kept. Inside, he proposes that the two friends work for his cause and if all goes well, they will have a chance at redemption. Ryu and Ken accept the offer, but when they return to the prison, the two friends get into an argument and start fighting in front of everyone. The soldiers soon stop the fight and send them into the truck, but it was all just a distraction so Ryu could steal the keys to the handcuffs. Seeing this, Sagat offers to help them get out of town if they release him and, without hesitation, Ken throws the key to the crime boss. With everyone free, the prisoners soon take over the truck, confront the soldiers and head out of the prison. Halfway there, Guile appears and tries to stop the criminals by firing several shots at the truck. However, Ken had disarmed one of the soldiers and fires his pistol at the colonel, who falls to the ground wounded. Nearby, reporter Chun-Li has seen everything and, as she passes by the truck, she throws a tracker to find out its location. Cammy then rushes off with the medics to help the colonel, but Guile is apparently eliminated and his body is taken back to the military base. Meanwhile, Bison is in his living room, contemplating the model of his future kingdom, Bisonopolis. Suddenly, he sees the news on TV that Guile has been eliminated and to the surprise of his allies, DJ and Zangief, he regrets this, as he wanted to face the colonel face to face. After announcing this news, Chun-Li and her colleagues, Balrog and Honda, go to check the tracker and discover that another one has been placed on the truck. The three investigate this and discover that the second tracker came from the Allied army. To find out more, Chun-Li puts on a disguise and, with the help of her companions, breaks into the military base. She reaches the morgue, where she finds Guile's body, which suddenly rises from the stretcher. The colonel reveals that it was all a setup, arranged with Ryu and Ken, to fake his perishment and distract Bison. Chun-Li reveals that she has common interests with Guile, as she wants to take revenge on the villain, but the colonel orders her arrest for invading the military base. Despite this, Chun-Li manages to easily escape from the soldiers and flees the scene to continue with her plan for revenge. Hours later, on the outskirts of Shadaloo, Bison summons Sagat to negotiate the purchase of illegal weapons, while a magic show entertains the guests. Meanwhile, one of the showgirls uses her beauty to lure Ryu and Ken to another stall. However, she soon reveals herself to be Chun-Li and arrests the two fighters, with the help of Honda and Balrog. They claim to know that the pair are at Guile's service and force them to help her in her mission to take down Bison. With no choice, they accept and the young woman sends them back to meet Bison and Sagat, unaware that things are not going well there. Sagat demands to see the payment for the weapons and Bison shows him a briefcase full of Bison dollars. Sagat thinks it's absurd, but the general tells him that when he completes his plan to capture the Queen of England, his currency will be the most valuable in the world. This plan doesn't convince Sagat and he orders his men to attack Bison, who gives the same order to his army. To Ryu and Ken's misfortune, they arrive in the middle of the crossfire, but from inside a room, they all hear a message from Chun-Li. When they go inside, Bison and Sagat find a TV broadcasting a live message, with the reporter announcing that the whole place is going to be blown up. Soon after, she and her aides send a truck full of explosives towards the tent where they are. Eventually, the truck crashes into the weapons shipment and explodes, but Bison and his allies are still alive. To make matters worse, with the help of his telescope, the villain locates Chun-Li, Honda and Balrog, with all three being taken prisoner to his secret base. Sagat, Ryu and Ken are also taken to the base as guests so that they can get a closer look at Bison's grand plan for domination. Unbeknownst to him, at that moment Guile plans to invade his secret base and explains the plan of action to his soldiers. With everything ready, the colonel passes on the orders to everyone, but soon afterwards, a government representative arrives at the base. He informs them that the leaders of the Allied nations have decided to pay Bison the amount demanded in order to save the prisoners and avoid conflict. However, Guile does not accept this order and motivates his warriors to confront Bison and end his reign of terror. Without hesitation, the soldiers set off in their ships, completely ignoring the government's orders, and follow their leader into the final battle against Bison. Meanwhile, the villain summons Chun-Li to his chambers and the young woman reveals her real identity. She is the daughter of a magistrate who tried to take on Bison through the law, but ended up being eliminated by his cronies. Since that day, Chun-Li has sworn revenge for her father's elimination and has waited years to find him. Upon hearing this, Bison shows no sign of compassion or remorse and even mocks the girl, saying that the day her father perished was just another Tuesday in his life. The two of them continue their conversation, while in the cells of the base, Honda and Balrog are attacked by the executioner. Even so, they show enormous resistance, which leads him to go to the weapons room to look for something that will cause them more pain. At that moment, Ryu and Ken appear by surprise, attack the man and set off to save the prisoners. But when they get there, Honda and Balrog have already freed themselves and attack them, thinking that the two were in Bison's service. Luckily, Ryu and Ken manage to explain themselves before it's too late and the four of them set off to help Chun-Li. The young woman continues to provoke Bison, who says he doesn't believe she's as threatening as she says. Chun-Li then decides to prove her strength and attacks him with a flying kick, followed by several quick blows. She soon gets the upper hand in the fight and is about to defeat him, only to be distracted when she sees her friends arrive on the scene and Bison takes advantage of this to escape to a secret compartment. He then locks everyone in his room and releases a poisonous gas, which knocks Chun-Li and her friends unconscious. The villain laughs with satisfaction, unaware that every minute, Guile and his army are getting closer to their secret base. The colonel orders the soldiers to surround the place, while he and his companions, Cammy and T-Hawk, take a direct route by sea. On the way, Guile remembers Charlie and promises to rescue him, but his friend increasingly turns into a powerful monster. In the midst of this macabre experiment, Dr. Dalsim feels guilty about what he is doing to Charlie, who is getting stronger and more aggressive. To stop this process, the doctor changes the recordings, putting in happier images so that Charlie keeps his essence intact. Minutes pass and Guile finally finds the secret base and sees the radar signal on the readers. He activates the ship's stealth mode and starts firing at the base, but his attack is ineffective and he is located by the security system. Seeing the invader, Bison fires guns around the island and starts firing them at the ship, which dodges the shots with difficulty. The villain uses his computer to contact the ship and discovers that Guile is still alive and in charge of the invasion. Seeing that his rival has survived, Bison brings in Chun-Li and her companions, bound in handcuffs, so that they can all witness his enormous firepower. The general then goes to his ship's control panel and activates the mechanisms, which look more like arcade controllers. The villain presses the buttons and moves the levers, which activate the water mines around the base. Guile manages to dodge them as far as he can, but one of the mines explodes, along with his ship. With Guile's perishment presumed, Bison celebrates his victory once again. However, in his laboratory, Dr. Dalsim continues to modify the experiment in order to save Charlie. Just then, one of the guards sees everything and throws the doctor against the machines. Dalsim tries to resist and the two begin to destroy the place, which causes the chamber to open and Charlie is finally freed. Unaware of what's going on in the lab, Bison's soldiers leave the base to check if there are any more invaders around. To their misfortune, they are surprised by Guile, Cammy and T-Hawk, who have survived the explosion and are eliminating Bison's soldiers one after the other. After this confrontation, the trio head towards a temple, which serves as a front for Bison's secret base. They need to get inside as soon as possible, because the 72-hour time has passed and Bison intends to eliminate all the prisoners. Guile decides to enter the site alone, while Cammy and T-Hawk have to wait for reinforcements. After passing through a tunnel and entering the ventilation duct, the colonel arrives at the laboratory and sees the place completely destroyed. While looking for the exit, Guile is suddenly attacked by Charlie, who doesn't recognize his friend and tries to eliminate him. The colonel convinces him to come to his senses and Dr. Dalsim reveals everything that happened in the laboratory. Before he can lead them out, Guile hears Bison's voice summoning his new creature, which he names BLANKA. The tyrant intends to use it to eliminate all the prisoners and triggers the command to bring the chamber where he was imprisoned into the main hall. The camera appears in front of everyone, but instead of BLANKA, Guile appears, who lunges forward with a flying kick, hitting Bison and pushing him away. When they see the colonel, the villain's army starts shooting at him, but Guile runs away and activates the button on the panel, freeing Ryu and his companions. With all the allies assembled, Guile instructs the group to rescue the prisoners, while he confronts Bison. The fighters follow his orders and while Ryu, Ken, Chun-Li and Balrog go in search of the prisoners, Honda sets off to confront the leader of the army, Zangief. Outside the base, Guile's soldiers finally reach the island and help Cammy and T-Hawk fight Bison's army. In the midst of the confusion, Ryu and Ken are looking for the civilians, but on the way, they find their way out of the base. Ken insists that the two of them leave, but Ryu refuses, saying that he has found his motivation to fight and sets off to save the prisoners. At the same time, Guile continues to face more soldiers, but his ammunition runs out and he uses a cable to swing himself to a bridge, which leads to the exit. When he gets there, more soldiers appear, but they soon retreat, because behind Guile, Cammy and his faithful fighters appear. They say that the place is surrounded, but they still haven't managed to locate Bison. However, the tyrant reappears and challenges Guile to a hand-to-hand fight. Even though his colleagues say it's a trap, the colonel accepts the challenge and sends his friends out of the room, with Bison doing the same. Now, with the two of them alone, it's time for the final fight. Guile unleashes his quick blows against Bison, but the villain is more resilient and throws himself with him towards his ship. Even so, the colonel continues to hit his opponent as hard as he can and even pushes his face against a huge metal structure. Despite Guile's efforts, Bison doesn't give up and pushes him out of the ship. Luckily, the colonel manages to hold onto the ship and rises again with a kick, pushing Bison back to the ground. The fight continues and the villain knocks Guile to the ground with a powerful blow, but the colonel quickly strikes back with an insane blow. He then pushes Bison against the wall and unleashes his powerful kick, leaving the villain bewildered. Bison tries to counterattack, but Guile dodges his attack and kicks him in the back, pushing him towards the control panel. Suddenly, the villain's body is electrocuted by the energy from the panel and he falls unconscious. Guile believes that Bison is finally gone and uses the communicator to talk to Cammy, who says she still doesn't know the location of the prisoners. He tells her he's going to help her, but when he looks back, he finds Bison, alive, and what's worse, even stronger thanks to the electricity in his body. With this new power, the villain shoots electric beams from his hand and throws Guile away. In the meantime, DJ decides to abandon Bison and tries to escape, but first he goes to his boss's room and steals a chest from a safe. Shortly afterwards, Ken also appears on the scene in search of money and valuables, but instead he finds the base's security system. Through the cameras, he sees Ryu pass through the training area in search of the prisoners, only for Vega and Sagat to be on the scene, and Ken decides to go and help his friend. Ryu soon encounters the two criminals and is forced to face them alone, while Guile continues his confrontation with Bison. The villain is stronger than ever and uses his electricity to levitate in the air and then throw a flying punch at Guile. The Colonel is in trouble, as is Ryu, who does his best to stop Sagat and Vega at the same time. Fortunately, Ken shows up to help and the two split up, with Ken facing Sagat and Ryu settling the score with Vega. Sagat has greater physical strength, but the fighter uses his agility to dodge his attacks and even lands his most powerful blow, the Shoryuken, on the man's chin. Finally, he finishes him off with a sequence of punches and a spinning kick, knocking out his opponent. Meanwhile, Ryu is forced to dodge Vega's sharp claw, which lands him on a wall next to a furnace. Ryu uses this to his advantage and opens the furnace door, pushing Vega's face into the fire. The fighter screams in pain and almost has his face burned off, if it weren't for his mask. He sets out to attack Ryu once again, but the fighter uses all his strength to remove Vega's claws and finally knocks him down with a kick to the face. Ryu and Ken have finally defeated their opponents, but the same can't be said for Guile, who is trying to resist Bison's powers. The villain begins to revel in his new powers and claims to have reached the level of the gods. To prove it, he flies towards Guile to give him the final blow, but in a last-ditch effort, the Colonel unleashes a powerful kick, which pushes Bison against the huge screen of the base. As a result, the entire electrical system is overloaded and the alarm indicates that the secret base will be destroyed in a few minutes. Guile runs to the exit, while Chun-Li, Cammy, Balrog and T-Hawk finally find the prisoners and escape with them out of the place. On the way, they meet Honda, who continues to fight Zangief, but he soon gives up when he sees that his friends are leaving. Zangief doesn't take this lying down and finds DJ, who is about to run off with the chest. The man asks what he's doing and DJ tells him that Bison was the villain from the start and that he only worked for him because of the money. Zangief is dismayed, because not only is he acting evil against his will, he hasn't even been paid for his services. The huge fighter decides to redeem himself and, seeing the innocents trying to escape through one of the gates, he uses his strength to hold the gate open for them to pass through. Finally, everyone manages to leave the base, except for Guile, who sets off to find Charlie in the lab. He finally finds him, but Charlie knows he can't return in this state and leaves, along with Dr. Dalsim. The laboratory begins to explode from the inside out and Guile is forced to flee, leaving BLANKA behind. Minutes later, Bison's lair is blown up and, although the prisoners are safe, the fighters look on worriedly as there is no sign of Guile. Nevertheless, the Colonel's army continues its mission, arresting Bison's soldiers and helping the wounded civilians. Nearby, DJ appears outside, having managed to escape with the money. But next to him is Sagat, who saw everything and demands half the money. Unfortunately for both of them, what was inside the chest were Bison dollars, which, with the villain's elimination, are no longer worth anything. Finally, Ryu, Ken and the other fighters mourn Guile's apparent perishment, but soon afterwards, the Colonel appears, safe and sound. With all the fighters reunited, they celebrate the destruction of Bison's secret base and the end of his tyrannical reign at Shadaloo. However, hours after the conflict, amidst the wreckage of the base, Bison's hand appears, proving that he managed to survive. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.